Hello, everyone. We are live with another episode of the Embracing Joy podcast. And I'm so excited for this topic today, which is Transform Your Sleep, Transform Your Life with Dr. Nishi Bhopal. Thanks, Doctor. It's such a pleasure to have you on today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited for this talk. Sleep is my favorite topic. So, yeah, really pleased to be here. Thank you so much.
Right. And sleep is a necessary ingredient for joy, right? So all of our episodes are related to how high achieving professionals can embrace more joy in their lives, and sleep is crucial. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Mhm. Okay. So, with that being said, I'm going to go right into your bio so our audience can learn more about you. Dr. Nishi Bhopal is board certified in psychiatry and sleep medicine and integrative holistic medicine. And she's the founder and the medical director of Pacific Integrative Psychiatry, which is an online practice in California. In addition to her private practice, she's the founder of IntraBalance, which is an educational platform that includes a YouTube channel and courses on sleep and insomnia. Wow, that's great work that you're doing, especially that you're sharing your information with the public on different platforms. Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's one of my, sort of missions is to really provide education on sleep, both for the lay public and for other clinicians, healthcare practitioners, because most doctors only get 1 or 2 hours of sleep education and training, yet everyone has to sleep, right? Like all your patients have to sleep.
Mhm.
And I saw this gap in our clinical education and in the marketplace that there's just a lot more education that needs to be done. And there's a lot of people talking about sleep out there that aren't necessarily qualified. They don't have
Mhm.
the background and training and credentials. And so there's information out there that isn't quite right. So that's why I started this YouTube channel and educational platform and courses and whatnot, just to kind of fill that gap.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Sleep is so crucial and important. And I know in my medical training, it wasn't something that was emphasized as far as getting sleep or learning about sleep or learning about sleep.
Exactly. Exactly. Not a priority on both fronts there.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about let's see, can you help us? Well, before we go into the questions, we'll do our quick warm up game, which is called mind meld or convergence, where you will say the first word that comes to mind, and I'll say the first word that comes to mind on the count of three. And then on the next cycles, we say what word may connect those two words. You ready? Okay.
Okay.
We try to say around the same time, but there's a lag with the internet, so I understand. So, okay. So on the count of three, you say the first word that comes to mind. One, two, three. Pillow.
Sleep.
Ha! Pillow and sleep. So those are already very connected. We almost is not the same word, but something that
Yes.
connects. So now we need to think about a word that connects sleep and pillow together and try to
Okay.
connect those two. Okay. One, two, three. Bed.
Bed.
Yeah,
Oh, we
yay.
did
Bed, yeah.
it.
Because we could have went so many ways with it. We could have
Oh,
said three.
yeah.
We could have said, you know,
Rest.
rest. Yeah, yeah. Bed. So we got it. So our minds are already like
We're
converging.
melded.
Melded. So so let's go into our questions. Can you help our audience like understand how sleep is actually the foundation for joy and productivity? So our audience are high achieving professionals, predominantly physicians who may think that sleep is optional or that they can put it off. Can you help those people understand how sleep is actually the foundation for joy and productivity and our overall well-being and not something that they can kind of just put off for productivity?
Absolutely. Well, sleep is not optional, right? And, if your audience is mostly clinicians, doctors, as you were saying, many of us are, I mean, most of us are sleep deprived in clinical training. Like that's just the nature of medical school, residency, fellowship. Sleep deprivation is the name of the game. So it was not a priority for us. And in fact, we were trained to work at a high level on very little sleep, right? In a chronic state of sleep deprivation. So that's the training we're coming in with. And that's true not just for physicians. I mean, physicians, I think, are kind of an extreme in that regard.
Mhm.
We're expected to work 24-hour shifts and longer and still perform at a high level. But I had a message from a patient this morning who works in tech, and he's like, oh my God, I pulled this all-nighter because we were doing this project. So people in these high-performing, high-pressure situations in these professions are expected to work at a very high level on very little sleep.
Mhm.
But in fact, now with emerging research, we are learning that the opposite is actually true. So when you're sleep deprived, you're not going to be functioning optimally. You are actually going to be functioning at a level of like a blood alcohol level close to the level of being drunk, maybe even more, depending on how sleep deprived you are.
Mhm.
Sleepy driving can be equivalent to drunk driving. So that's how it can impair performance and productivity. So, what I like to talk about here is kind of some examples of people who have figured it out, because now corporations are incorporating nap rooms into their clinical offices, like Google, NASA, Ben and Jerry's, Huffington Post. These companies have nap rooms in their corporate offices because they know how crucial rest and sleep is for their employee productivity and bottom line. And in fact, people who perform at a high level, like NBA players, for example, like LeBron James, he talks a lot about how sleep is so crucial to his performance and his recovery, and it's part of his training plan. So he prioritizes getting like 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night,
Mhm.
plus long naps sometimes. Other people who your audience might connect to, like Bill Gates, for example. So he talks about how when he first started Microsoft, there was almost a competition to see who could function the most on the least amount of sleep. Like, oh, you only got 5 hours? Well, I got 0 hours, right? It became a competition to see like who got the least amount of sleep. But now he's realized that sleep is so foundational to brain health. And I think his father had Alzheimer's. So he's gone the other direction and makes sleep a priority. The
Mhm.
same goes for other people who work at a high level. Jeff Bezos, for example, he's talked about that, about not wanting to make major decisions for his business when he hasn't gotten at least 8 hours of sleep. And he also structures his schedule so that he doesn't have to make decisions after 5 p.m. So, those are just some examples of people who function at a high level, who prioritize sleep. When it comes to joy, the thing is that when you are sleep deprived, or if you're not getting good quality sleep, you actually get more activation of the amygdala. So, the part of the brain that's involved in fear and worry and anxiety, and our frontal lobes start to shut down when we haven't gotten enough sleep. And so, it's hard to make decisions, but it's also hard to regulate mood. And
Mhm.
I mean, I know from personal experience, if I'm sleep deprived, I'm going to be more irritable. I'm going to be more cranky. My husband's going to get on my nerves. Like, it's just harder to access joy when you're tired. So, what I encourage people to do is just take a moment to take an inventory of your sleep and how does it affect you? What do you notice when you've gotten good quality sleep versus when you maybe haven't gotten enough sleep or it's been more disrupted? How does it affect you personally, like in terms of your mood, your relationships, your communication, your decision making, your thinking? Are you more prone to making mistakes at work? Are you more prone to yelling at your kids or getting irritable at your family members and loved ones? So just start by taking that inventory, and that will actually give you some good data as to how sleep impacts you and how you might want to address it moving forward.
Well, I love those examples of so many people that you would think that they're functioning on little sleep, but they're actually prioritizing. They're prioritizing sleep, such as Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or LeBron James, to name a few. But I think, you know, us as other professionals, especially when you've been trained as physicians to function on limited sleep, or other tech professionals who have history or experience of functioning on limited sleep, they can take that example and learn from it and start to prioritize sleep to see that it's actually something that will help them perform better in the long run. Because I think that's the key to it. It's like you kind of think you may not perform better or you may not do enough if you're able to sleep, but when your brain is functioning better, if they see that they're able to perform better, then they're able to prioritize sleep much better. And I also loved what you said about the amygdala and how our brain functions with little sleep. So I think that's a great takeaway because we want to access joy and we want to access more. We want to be emotionally regulated and not irritable. So prioritizing sleep will help with that as well. Thank you. Thank you. So with that being said, sometimes there's like a cycle of insomnia. And once that cycle has already started, it's hard to kind of get out of the pattern of having insomnia. What are some of the most common mistakes some professionals make when trying to fix their sleep? And what practical shifts can help break the cycle of insomnia? So, for me, an example would be maybe taking a long nap and then not being able to sleep at night, and then the cycle kind of continues. So, that type of cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. This is such a great question. And I really like how you're framing it as a cycle because that's exactly what it is. It's almost like a runaway train sometimes for people. Like when they're stuck in this pattern of insomnia, they feel like it's just running on its own now and they don't know what to do to get out of that cycle. And it becomes a self perpetuating sort of thing. And this is a great example that you just shared about, taking a long nap when you're tired and when you're having insomnia. There is that urge sometimes to like, oh, let me just lie down in the middle of the day. I'm so exhausted. Let me try to get some rest. I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. But that actually takes away from your nighttime sleep. It's almost like if you have a sleep bank, like a bank of hours at night, you're withdrawing from the bank and you're putting that during the day. So now you've got less sleep in the bank for nighttime. And it so, in terms of sleep science, it actually reduces what's known as sleep drive or sleep pressure. And I was actually talking to one of my clients, my patients this morning, and he's a tech professional and didn't get a good night's sleep last night. And our appointment was, in the morning. And he said, you know what? I think I'm just going to go back to bed for a few hours. I didn't sleep well last night and haven't been sleeping well for a few nights. And I said, okay, well, that's actually the opposite of what we want to do. You want to be active, as engaged as you can be during the day. If you want to take a nap, maybe 15, 20 minutes before 3 p.m. can be restorative, but we don't want to take away from that nighttime sleep. It's like having a big snack before dinner. If you do that, then you're just not going to be hungry for dinner. So, what does help though with breaking that cycle of insomnia? One is understanding how sleep works. So, for your clinical and professional audience, I think that sort of education is really helpful because we thrive on education and information. So, if you can understand how it works, that will inform what you do next. So, understanding the circadian rhythm, our body loves to be on a clock, waking up around the same time every day, having your meals on a schedule every day within about 30 minutes of the same time every day is great. Having a wind down routine in the evening that's not too rigid, and I'll talk about that a bit more in a second. Understanding sleep drive, like we were just saying, it's like your snacks before dinner. So if the more you go without sleeping during the day, then the stronger your sleep hunger is going to be at night. So staying active, awake, and alert. But one of the biggest traps that professionals and high achievers fall into is trying to solve sleep like it's a problem. And we're really good at solving problems, right? Like we're good at getting information, we're good at solving problems, we're good at working harder to achieve an outcome. But sleep is a paradox in that way because the harder you work at it, the more effort you put into trying to sleep, the worse it gets. So there is a process of letting go where we cannot force our bodies to sleep, but we can set up the right conditions for sleep to come, right? So it's inviting sleep in. So there's a passive aspect to it. So, I had another patient who also very high achieving professional engineer. So he was really good at engineering problems. Let's solve these problems, these engineering problems with all of these different interventions. So he had engineered about 25 to 30 different things that he would do at night in order to fall asleep. And what does that do when you have a list of 30 things to make yourself fall asleep? It creates more anxiety,
Mhm.
right? It creates more fear. What if I miss one item on that list? Now I'm not going to be able to sleep. So the process is really not about engineering your sleep, but creating the conditions so that you can invite it in. So what that looks like is the fixed wake times. A counterintuitive thing is actually spending less time in bed. So
Mhm.
restricting the amount of time that you're spending in bed or compressing that amount of time, looking at maybe thoughts that you might have about sleep that aren't serving you, thoughts that might be unhelpful, limiting beliefs, around sleep. Well, I'm not going to be able to function if I don't get my 8 hours. So it's a little bit counter to what we were talking about earlier, but taking the pressure off of it is a really important aspect. But I'll pause there because I know I just dumped a lot of information out there.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm relating a little bit to some of those thoughts. Like if I, because once you know how important sleep is, then you think about, oh, I won't be able to function properly, or I won't be able to do things properly, once that insomnia gets to you. So I can relate to having those type of thoughts. So trying to just let it go is super important, and to just not make it another thing on your like not make a full list of to-dos before you sleep. And so breaking that cycle. And the key that I had not heard before, even as a physician, was spending less time in bed. I'd never heard that before, and that's kind of eye-opening as well. So some of our patients, because you feel like you have insomnia, you didn't sleep, so now you need to sleep, right? So more time in bed.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and so that's called sleep restriction, which is one of the core components of CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And in fact, studies show that sleep restriction is not really sleep restriction, it's actually time in bed restriction. That is effective as a standalone treatment for insomnia for many patients. So sometimes just doing that part, spending a little bit less time in bed, actually consolidates your sleep. It's like if you have a piece of like a pizza dough and you're stretching it on a big pan, it's going to get thin and there's going to be holes in it. But if you squeeze it down, you're going to get a nice thick layer of dough. That's kind of what happens when you reduce the amount of time in bed. So that's called sleep restriction or time in bed compression or time in bed restriction. But what I will say, just to kind of differentiate, so it's not confusing, because this can get a bit confusing for people. We're saying, okay, you need to get enough sleep, but don't worry about it too much. So I just want to like clarify that a little bit. There's kind of two buckets that we're talking about here. One bucket is the person who's sleep deprived. They don't have insomnia, but they're just not making sleep a priority, right? Like they're pulling the all-nighters and they're like, okay, whatever. If I get 4 hours, I'll be fine tomorrow and let me just work on this project. That's the person who's choosing to sleep deprive themselves for whatever
Mhm.
reason versus the person with chronic insomnia. So these are two different buckets and two different strategies. So I just want to make sure we clarified that, because
Mhm.
for the person who has chronic insomnia and they're hearing, oh my God, LeBron James gets 10 hours of sleep every night, how am I going to function? We're not talking about that. We're talking about a different process altogether.
Hmm. Thank you for clarifying. And of course, this is not medical advice. Once you have your own personal relationship with your physician, or, it's educational, so it's something to draw from. But of course, everybody's coming from a different history as far as their insomnia or their relationship with sleep is a little bit different. But this is definitely educational, and we're learning a lot here.
Exactly.
So, with that being said, there's for some busy professionals that feel like they're constantly on, what are some few realistic science-based habits that they can try to start today to improve their quality of sleep?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing that I tell people is that good sleep starts during the day. So if you feel like you're always on, don't just focus on what happens in that 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed. Look at how you regulate your nervous system throughout the day, because your nervous system doesn't just switch from sympathetic or, active mode, fight and flight mode to the parasympathetic rest and digest mode like a switch. It's not like flipping a switch like, okay, now it's, 10 p.m. and we're just going to switch into rest and digest. It doesn't work that way. So we have to regulate the nervous system as you go throughout the day. So, what that looks like practically, one is, like I said before, if you have a consistent enough schedule, getting up around the same time every morning. If you're working shifts and stuff like that, this doesn't necessarily apply. But if you have a regular schedule, getting up around the same time every morning and getting bright sunlight. First thing in the morning, what I like to do is just take 5 deep breaths and set your intention for the day. Just start with that instead of reaching for your phone and scrolling social media or scrolling email, looking at the news. Like you're still horizontal and you're already like, the world is coming at you. You're overstimulated. That's not great for the nervous system. So before you do anything, 5 deep breaths, maybe drink some water, set your intention for the day, and then go about your day. As the day goes on through your workday, do the same thing. So take a few deep breaths consciously, maybe go outside, go for a short walk, get some fresh air, some sunshine, put your screens away, just do a little bit of a mini digital detox throughout the day, take some time for yourself. So that's one of the most effective things that people can do. So you're not just like on the go all day, and then all of a sudden your brain is wired and active at night. So we can regulate that. The next thing is the regular schedules. So having your meals on a regular schedule, a lot of people forget about that, but that actually is a great anchor for your circadian rhythm, and it keeps your body clock running on time. Because if you have a pet, then you know this, that like I have a dog, so he knows exactly when it's breakfast time, exactly when it's dinner time, exactly when it's time to go for the walk. You know, as humans, we've kind of lost touch with some of those routines. So getting yourself on that routine. And then the other tip is that light is your best friend. It's your most powerful tool. Most of us have a deficiency of light exposure during the day. We just don't get enough light. And then we have a deficiency of darkness at night. It's too much light at night. So,
Mm,
exaggerating your light exposure during the day, going outside and getting bright light, even if it's gray and cloudy, it's still very bright outside compared to indoor light exposure. And then at night, creating a cave like atmosphere in your home, not just in your bedroom, but even in your home after about 7 or 8 p.m. Turn all the lights down, maybe use a few small orange lamps, things like this, salt lamps or very dim lights, and exaggerating that darkness. It's going to get your body on a rhythm. So those are some of the best things that you can do for sleep. But if you're struggling with chronic insomnia, you feel like you're doing all the right things and you're worried about your sleep, you have racing thoughts, it's consuming you, you're thinking about it all the time, you're researching, you're trying the magnesium, the melatonin, and all these different gadgets, and nothing's helping, that's where CBTI or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia is highly effective.
and who would someone go to for CBTI therapy? Like, how would they
Yeah,
know?
great question. So you can do CBTI with a variety of different types of practitioners. So you can do it with a psychologist. It can be done one-on-one. Some psychiatrists and other physicians like myself have training in it and can do it. You can also do it through apps. There's different apps out there. Sleep Reset is one of them. Sleepio is another one. There's a free one from the VA called CBTI Coach. That's a free download. And even if you're a physician working with patients, you can download that for free and you can use that to guide your patients as well. There's also online CBTI clinics. So if you're not sure where to start, you can go to the Society for Behavioral Sleep Medicine, and they have a provider list and you can search by country. So they have multiple countries and you can search by country and state.
Oh, thank you for that information. I know it's very useful for our listeners that are listening live. And then if you're listening to the replay, please share this with someone you know that may be having insomnia or having difficulties with sleep or or that wants to learn how to adjust their relationship with sleep. So we're going to go into our wrap up questions. Dr. Nishi, who is a model for joy in your life and why?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. So for me, it is Sadhguru. So if anyone hasn't heard of Sadhguru, he is a yogi who teaches yoga and meditation. And it's really a model for joy for me because he is an embodiment of doing things joyfully, like fully with full involvement in your life, no matter what you're doing, whether it's the most mundane task like washing dishes or doing something that maybe impacts people on a grand scale, doing it with your full attention, involvement, with a spirit of gratitude and service. That is something that I have learned through his teachings and through his programs. And so, yeah, so for me, it's Sadhguru is really that sort of icon for me when it comes to joy.
That's very beautiful. Like being very intentional and and joyful and being involved. So, what if you were baking a cake of joy? What would be your top three ingredients?
Ooh, I love that. So, okay, so top three ingredients would be gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
acceptance, and love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great ingredients. I definitely agree with the gratitude. What do you for acceptance? Acceptance of like your peace or state of being?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think, yeah. So, what I mean by acceptance is so much of our suffering comes from wishing things were different.
Mhm.
right? Like wishing my life was a different way, or that I wish that person didn't say that thing to me, or I wish this thing didn't happen, or
Mhm.
I wish I could have this or I could have that, right? So like so much of our suffering comes from those expectations that things should be or we want them to be different. But I
Mhm.
think if once we get into a place of acceptance, even with sleep, I wish I could sleep right now and I'm awake, right? So once you get into that place of acceptance of, okay, well, this is what it is. I can't change that, right? This is the way that it is right now, or this is what's happening right now. Let me just accept that and embrace that for what it is, and then choose how I intentionally want to respond to the situation instead of getting into my head about I wish it
Mhm.
should, right? It should be or it shouldn't be. So that's what I mean by acceptance.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that interpretation in this sense. Yeah. So thank you. So, how can our audience find you if they wanted to learn more about what you do and your educational content as well? How can they find you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so people can find me at Intra Balance is INTRA Balance. I'm on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. If you just search for my name on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This has just been such an insightful conversation about sleep, and sleep can definitely transform your life. So, if this is you as far as insomnia or having issues with sleep, you know how who to contact as far as the Society for Behavioral, is it behavioral sleep?
Yes, behavioral sleep medicine. Yes.
Yeah, the Society for Behavioral Sleep Medicine to learn more is if you need specific treatment. Or you can, of course, learn more from Dr. Bhopal on her website, which is intrabalance.com. And this has been such a pleasure. So please share this episode with a friend and make sure to subscribe so that you'll know and be updated of the future episodes. Take care.